It's round 2 of our March Madness QB edition. Who's going to take the W here? Jayden Daniels at number 2 or Michael Penix Jr.? Adam Peters is a crazy man. Let's go. Greetings and salutations and welcome to Ref the District March Madness QB edition round 2. This is a second matchup for both. No surprise wins in round 1. So this is your 1v4 matchup. Jayden Daniels versus Michael Penix Jr. And Stoner, we started this knowing that nobody knows what Adam Peters is going to do. So we wanted to look at the top 8 QBs in the draft, or the ones that we listed as top 8, and kind of try to narrow it down to who we would like to see in Burgundy and Gold, or who we think Adam Peters would be smart to go after. And so if we did skip Caleb Williams, we assume that's pick 1, round 1, done. So he will be a matchup for whoever wins the final March Madness QB edition, here on Ref the District. And we don't know. We still have 1v4 and we still have 2v3 to go through. And you can help us out because we will be posting a community poll afterwards. Get your voice heard. Let us know right here in the comment section if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on your favorite audio platform, make sure you hit us up at Ref the District on our social media platforms and we'll respond back to you. I'm Nathan. That's the Stoner here on the Believe Network. And this matchup seemed destined, as these are two of the favorite QBs coming out of this draft. Jayden Daniels, and I know you're a big old Danny boy over there. And of course, you also have Michael Penix Jr., who surprised a few people on his pro day with some blazing speed and athletic ability. I loved his tweet afterwards. Is like, just because I don't, need to use my athletic ability doesn't mean I don't have it. And he really did show a little something. We'll see if that turns the tide here on our bracketology session here as we're going to go over both QBs. Stoner, you're a Danny boy. I don't mean that lightly, but what do you think of this matchup?
It's a great matchup because we were expecting this. This is a 1 versus 4. Our next matchup, 2 versus 3. Like you said, these are the 4 top guys we expected to be there at the end. You're right, though. Penix Jr. really surprised me at his pro day with his athleticism. But I think it was also telling that his pro day was the same time and day, or at least the same day, as Drake Maye's, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody was at Drake Maye's in terms of Commanders' top decision makers. And they did send people to Michael Penix Jr.'s pro day, but not the top dogs, right?
So they do have a top 30 visit, though. They do have a top 30 visit with Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, I think they're doing a really good job of doing that. Like, if you don't have your big dogs there for the pro day, you're at least going to have them in for a top 30 visit because you don't necessarily need to do both. Like, for example, you don't have to do a Jayden Daniels top 30 and a pro day and a combine and all of these other things. So I think they're being super smart about this, but Penix Jr. did surprise me at his pro day that he is athletic. But let's not get crazy here. He's not Jayden Daniels athletic.
No.
Right? He's not anywhere close to that. So I think that's kind of what I get out of their pro days and what's been going on. The great thing about doing these is that you do some deep dives, some good research on these guys, find out what they do well and what they don't do well. And Penix Jr., just for me, he's just not accurate enough for me. That's really his biggest downfall for me. I mean, in this day and age when it's basically easy to complete passes,
sure,
right? He's at like a 66% for his college career, and you got other guys over 70%, including Mr. Daniels. So that's why I would lean towards Daniels over Penix in this particular matchup. But yeah, Penix did surprise me. Did he surprise? Did he pop off the page for you at his pro day?
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting him to run that fast.
Right.
And one of the few QBs that chose to run, and especially one of the ones that's looked at as like a first round talent. And I will say that I don't think I'd be disappointed if Adam Peters goes any route here. Now, Jayden Daniels would be picked at 2. Michael Penix Jr. is not going to be picked at 2. This would be picking up someone like a Joe Alt or Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2 and then moving up into the first round for Michael Penix Jr. Or trading back out of 2, which doesn't seem like they're going to. It sounds like they really want to stay at 2. So I would expect most people expect QB, then jump up into the first round for an offensive tackle, but we just don't know what Adam Peters is going to do. And so it could very well be, hey, take, the premier tackle, at 2, and then find your way back into the first round to take the QB that you like. So,
yeah, I think because Penix also, he has moved his way probably from a second round guy into a first round guy, especially with just the need for quarterbacks that so many teams have positioned themselves at this point to take a quarterback, because in the offseason they have signed backups and they haven't gone after quarterbacks. So they have to take a quarterback. So just kind of the need of these teams to have to go and get certain guys in Penix and Nix and guys like that. So Penix, not only did he impress, but he moved from a second to a first round grade. He probably moved into like a top 12 sort of pick.
I don't know about that.
Like Minnesota.
I don't know about that.
No,
I still see him somewhere in the 20. I think we get over enamored with these QBs and we start projecting them a little bit higher. I remember last year as Will Levis was expected to go in the first round. I mean, I think at one point people thought he was going to be the second QB taken off the board. He ends up in the second round. Michael Penix Jr., there's a lot to like here. You're right a little bit on the accuracy. It's a little inconsistent. Sometimes the ball placement's not there. His best trait is avoiding pressure, avoiding sacks. He had a good offensive line out there in Washington, so they kept him upright. But even when he was pressured, he found a way not to be taken down. And that's such a huge thing. We've talked a lot about that with Sam Howell, is how sacks just end drives. Joe Burrow has his saying where he's like, as long as it's, if it's a third down, it doesn't matter. We're going to be punting it anyways type deal unless you're in field goal range. But the statistics show that you can't have drives end in sacks, because then they just, 80%, I want to say is the number off the top of my head, of drives that have sacks end in 0 points.
Yeah.
So, and then very few drives that have sacks in them end in a touchdown. And so that's one of those biggest things. That's one of those things that I'm hyper focused on when selecting the QB. And Michael Penix Jr. pops out with that. He has pretty good arm strength. That's a little slower with his arm. He's a bigger guy. I like that he can move within the pocket. Both these two have extensive time in college, right? Both of these are two of the older ones. Kind of neat that they're kind of pinned up there. Both can hit all over the field. It's just, I just don't know how it's going to translate for either of them to the NFL. I would be happy with either, especially with the team, the coaches that they're going to get here in Washington that they can potentially get coached up to learn. But
so rough. Nathan, you would be okay with a quarterback room going into training camp of Jake Fromm, Jeff Driscoll, Marcus Mariota, and Michael Penix Jr. You're okay with that?
I mean, Michael Penix Jr. is the future. I definitely the QBs 2 through 4 in this case, right? Mariota being 2, and Driscoll and Jake Fromm can fight for 3 and 4 in this regard. Not exactly exciting. Penix, I get that. I think any one of these QBs are going to take time to become good. I think Jayden Daniels probably has the highest floor his rookie year, and that's because of the rushing ability. So I think there's going to be struggles with them, but you're drafting this QB not to, and this is going to come up really big, I think, in that 2v3 matchup between Maye and McCarthy, is you're not drafting the QB to win this year, right? If you're winning this year with your rookie QB, then that is a bonus. But this QB is supposed to last you 10 years.
Sure.
This pick here is supposed to be a cornerstone for your franchise. So they're going to take some lickings this year. And no, I don't want to see Marcus Mariota out there. starting games for Washington. But if that's what it takes, then I'm okay with that.
I think maybe let's just say he falls to 36 in the second round, early in the second round. He's still there at 36, and at 2 they took Marvin Harrison Jr. because I'd like them to take Joe Alt, but that would be pretty boring. But it's better for the team overall. But
sure,
let's just say Michael Harrison Jr. to get the fan base excited about what's going on, and then at 36 he's there, and you take him. I wouldn't hate that, but it's not going to move the needle for me too much. I would be a little bit down going into camp. And I just don't think that this regime, with the opportunity at number 2 to take somebody, is going to pass on a quarterback and wait all the way into the second round. And there's only a couple guys who are worthy of that number 2 pick. And I don't think Penix is worthy of that pick. I don't think he has the ceiling that some of these other guys do. He definitely doesn't have the ceiling that Jayden Daniels does. That's why I think they have to, and I think they will eventually take Jayden Daniels at number 2. But in this matchup of Daniels versus Penix, our number 1 guy against the number 4 guy, I obviously have to go with Daniels. He's dynamic. He's got great accuracy. He's got a ridiculous arm. He played major college football for 4 years, so he's got the experience as well. And what's the only downfall? Maybe there's 2. Maybe it's his frame that's not.
I think that's overblown, but we'll get to that.
Don't. I think it's something that they'll have to worry about with his frame. Sure. Can he add weight? Sure. But does that mean he will? I mean, he already did gain weight. I think that's why he didn't run, because he put on like 10 pounds just between the off season and the pro day. So that's probably why he didn't run. Can he do all that? Sure, he can. But will it work for his frame size? Some people just don't have the body style to be able to put on a lot of muscle to be able to take the hits that they do every day. And then the other one is, of course, the issue with his sack rate. It's beyond concerning. I don't think it's enough to overlook him or pass on him. But it is a concern, and it's something that's going to have to get coached out of him. And he's got some darn good coaches here in Washington who are going to help him get out of that sack rate, which is way, way, way too high.
Yes. Now, I will say this with the sack rate. I'm going to have to talk a little bit more about it, but his final year, this last year, was at 20.2% pressure to sack rate, which is fine. It's not great. You want it to be sub 20. You really do. And there's not been an NFL QB who's not had a college year that was successful in the NFL that didn't have at least 1 year in college sub 20. And Jayden Daniels is like upper 20s for his career. Yeah. It just so happened to be this year he had it at 20.2. There are some legitimate concerns about it. Maybe I'll save it because it sounds like Jayden Daniels is going to beat Michael Penix here. So I'll save some of those larger concerns of mine for the next video. But you're right. Jayden Daniels, the most electric QB who's listed from 2 to 4. Okay. He is by far the most electric out of the last 4 that we have. His ceiling, like you said, is the highest. If we're going from a 1 to 10 scale, and 10 is like your franchise Super Bowl winning QB, he is a 10, right? He has that potential to be that. His floor, with his rushing ability, non-injury, of course, his rushing ability keeps his floor high too, because he can always be just a dual threat QB. He can always gash you on the ground, and ground yards and air yards, they're both getting you first down, right? Like, I don't care if he throws in the NFL, throws for 2,600 yards and runs for another 1,000. If you're winning games and you're getting those yards, just get them however you want them. But he is absolutely electric. The pressure to sack ratio. So JG, one of our commenters, kind of was asking about it and trying to get a little bit more insight, because this is kind of a fairly newer stat for, I think, most people kind of coming in, kind of trying to acknowledge it. And like I said, it's one of those things that we looked at with Sam Howell, because Sam Howell was just racking up just the sacks. And then it became, well, whose fault, is the sack, and like trying to assign blame. And then then kind of this pressure to sack ratio, which had been around for a while, kind of came to light. And what this is anytime a QB is pressured, how often is that turning into sack? And it's not just dumping it off. Okay. It's not, if a QB dumps it off and avoids a sack, that's fine, because at least it's not the negative yards. But it's not just about that. It's not about just throwing it away. It's how many times are they, turning in a pressure into a negative play. Right. And so the higher that number gets, and Sam Howell was in the 30s, and Jayden Daniels is in the upper 20s, maybe just lightly touching 30 on some of those seasons of his, it means nearly a third of the time that you can get pressure on him, he is being taken down. And I just told you 80% of the time, 80% of drives that have a sack in them end with 0 points. And that affects games. So,
I mean, you put those two together. If you say he's bad at taking sacks, and taking sacks kills drives, keeps you from getting points, you add those two together, that's not conducive to a successful offense. Sam Howell was not able to fix that. His in college was really bad too, right? And his first year in the NFL was unable to fix it. And like you said, there are other factors to it. It's not all on the quarterback, but still, that quarterback is consistently, no matter where he plays, consistently has this issue. So if you see that with Sam Howell and all the problems that he had, there's a possibility that transfers also for Jayden Daniels. We can't have Jayden Daniels going back there and getting sacked 60 times this season. You can't do that. It's not conducive to being a successful offense now or in the future. You don't just all of a sudden fix it. It's something inherent. You can get better at it, but it's inherent. Russell Wilson's never gotten better at it. He's had other ways to overcome it. That's great. But if you're that guy who takes sacks, you're that guy who takes sacks. And that's not conducive to a successful offense, I don't think.
Yeah. So it is going to be interesting to see how people vote for this. It sounds like both of us are going to go with Jayden Daniels. And I don't want to belabor the point, because we're going to have another Jayden Daniels matchup if both of us are going Jayden Daniels, and we'll see. I know Jayden Daniels has a lot of detractors. If we did not convince you to take him over Michael Penix, you're going to have to let us know why when you comment on this video or in the polls. This is our 1v4 March Madness QB edition here on Ref the District. We just really don't know who Washington is going to take. And the betting odds right now have both Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye even. And you can head over to Bet Online to use the code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to put money down on those odds. And if you use that code, you get a 50% welcome bonus. That's right. And all your wagering news and information is right there at your fingertips, whether or not you're betting on actual March Madness, NBA action, NHL action, MMA, or baseball. All of it is right there at your fingertips on Bet Online. Bet Online, where the game starts. Make sure you get in the polls. Let us know. And of course, you can join us live on Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern, as we'll be doing a recap of these two matchups on our Wednesday show. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. We're Ref the District here on the Believe Network, brought to you by Bet Online. And until next time,
Jayden Daniels, he's the dude. He's him.
Be a fan.